Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
This the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Program.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Ekow Essuman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 460 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined as ever by former heavyweight world title challenger, the main man himself, Mr. Fast Eddie Chambers. Eddie, how you doing this week?
I'm doing great, my man. How about you?
Always good when speaking with you, Eddie. It's crazy. We're getting to September soon. I know that we've only just began in August, but September will be the 9-year anniversary of the podcast. Myself and you, Eddie, have been hosting it pretty much every single week. You've been with me since 2020. Which is amazing. A big thank you to you for that. Anyway, let's dive straight into the review part of the show as per usual. We're going to start here at the SSE Arena in Belfast, Northern Ireland. Over here, Tyrone McKenna in that rematch against Mohamed Mamoun. I did say on last week's show, I got nothing against Tyrone McKenna, but I did want to see Mohamed Mamoun, emerge victorious simply because he should have won their first fight. Everyone knows that. I did say as well, though, this fight's got 10 rounds written all over it. I got that bit very, very wrong. I haven't seen the fight, but a TKO in the 5th round for Mohamed Mamoun, now 24-6. What a way to have your 30th pro fight. He's avenged that loss there to Tyrone McKenna, now 23-5 with a draw. Kevin Agyarko also on the card, now 15-0, a points win for him over 8 against Bahadur Karami, who's now 4-15 with 3 draws. Again, I didn't see it, but a lot of people expected more from Agyarko. Moving now to the Oakwell football ground in Barnsley, Yorkshire, United Kingdom. Over here, this one was on Sky Sports. We saw a few fights. Let's talk about this one. Stephen McKenna, now 15-0. What a fight. A TKO win for him in the 3rd against Joe Laws, now 14-3. It was for the vacant WBC International Silver Super Welterweight title. Both fighters down in the 1st round. Joe Laws down 3 times in the 3rd round, though, prior to his corner throwing in the towel. What an unbelievable fight. I think they said, Hagler Hearns, eat your heart out. This was a crazy, crazy fight. I mean, Joe Laws, I take my hat off. He just comes to fight all the time, and he's always giving value for money. I think he's a big ticket seller, and you can see why. He's a crazy character outside the ring, and he fights like that inside the ring. He did say, he went in very confident. He knew he was a big underdog. I think he said he was about 20-1 to win by KO. And he put Stephen McKenna down in the 1st round, which was shocking. Obviously, Joe Laws was down in the 1st, nice and early, in that round. And I thought, oh dear, this is, he's talked a good game, Joe Laws, but he's going to get splattered here by the looks of things. We know that McKenna's a massive puncher. But then, obviously, McKenna went in for the kill and ended up walking onto a shot. And it was alarming how clean McKenna was being hit by Joe Laws, who I think at times, that experience was just shining through from Joe Laws. He did seem to pull out a few little old tricks in the book, and he was catching McKenna, throwing with him. And credit to Joe Laws. Like I say, he went out on his shield in the end, but he had the fight beaten out of him. And Stephen McKenna, God knows, where he's going to get to in the sport, but I think he took some time off his shelf life there a little bit. It was a mad fight, well worth a watch if you haven't seen it. Also on the card, Caroline Dubois moved to double figure wins, now 10-0, friend of the show. This one was for the IBO and WBC interim lightweight world titles. She stepped in with the very tough Mayra Moneo, now 14-2. Moneo down from a left hook in the 6th round, but not overly hurt, and obviously went the distance over 10-2s. And then in the main event, Zach Chelli now 15-3 with a draw, a unanimous decision victory for Callum Simpson, the perfect 15-0 that won over 12 rounds for the British and Commonwealth super middleweight titles. Really, really good fight. Pretty much went as I expected it to go, to be honest with you. I did say Zach Chelli, he's not the best boxer, but if you get into a fight with him, then you're giving him a real chance because he can punch. He does love a tear up, and at times it was a little bit of a tear up, and Zach Chelli did have a little bit of success, but for the most part of the fight, it certainly was Callum Simpson in control of things. And like I say, when he was boxing, he was looking really good. He was coming forward. I didn't think he'd be on the front foot as much as he was, but it was smart stuff. He did hurt Zach Chelli, I think, in the opening round, and he did try and really pour it on Chelli in the early rounds, and then he seemed to sort of still win rounds, but just by doing just enough rather than, completely trying to, hurt him with every single punch. I think it was smart stuff from Callum Simpson, and like I say, it's 12 rounds banked. I like him. I think he's got a bright future in the sport. Moving out now to the final card to mention, and it was a massive card. Obviously, it went down at the BMO Stadium in LA, California, USA. It was live on DAZN pay-per-view. I don't know what you saw on this card, Eddie. What did you see, actually, before I come to you? Did you see... Yeah, you tell me what you saw.
I saw
Crawford?
I saw, of course, I saw Crawford.
Did you see Pitbull Cruz?
Probably at least, I seen Cruz.
Did you see David Morrell?
No, I missed. That's the one I missed.
Did you see Anderson and Bacoli?
Yeah, hell yeah.
And you saw Ruiz and Miller, yeah?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then we're going to be talking to you a lot. I'll come to you in a minute. Let's start down the card. Andy Cruz, you probably didn't catch Andy Cruz. He's now 4-0, a KO for him in the 7th round there against the very, very tough Antonio Moran, who's now 30-7 with a draw. That's only the second time Moran's been stopped, and Andy Cruz, like I say, with a really, really good win. I think his transition to the pros has been quite exciting to watch, and they're fast tracking him, that's for sure. This one was for the IBF international title, so he's being fast tracked as well with the sanctioning body. I like what they're doing with him, and it was an interesting fight because he did get caught a couple of times, but he's a very exciting, good fighter. Moving up the card, Jared Anderson, friend of the show, lost his O by KO. A lot of rhyming there. He's now 17-1. And a 5th round KO win for Martin Bacoli. Eddie, for some reason I can see you on my screen.
Oh, I hit the button by accident. My bad.
Okay. Martin Bacoli with the KO win in the 5th. Bacoli's now 21-1. It was for the vacant NABF and the WBO international heavyweight titles. Anderson down in the 1st. Twice in the 5th, and stopped standing. I tell you what, it was a massive, massive, massive shock for me, this. Looking back now, it perhaps shouldn't have been, but I just, I looked at Bacoli's weight, and he didn't, he lost a bit of weight from the Takam fight, but I didn't think it'd be enough for him to be, very mobile. However, mobility is just not his game. It seems to be that he likes to just walk forward, like I think a few people said, they were comparing him a little bit to like an old George Foreman, just walking forward and kind of just trapping you. And once he's kind of got you in his web, if you like, in his spider's web, if that makes any sense, then you're in serious danger, man, because he really can bang, and he doesn't like put his, he doesn't punch through his feet at all. He twists those shoulders and gets a lot of power generated, and you could see it from the first round, obviously, when Jared Anderson was down in that round. Jared Anderson was winning the round, 100%, and then obviously got put over. I think Jared Anderson came back well after that, but obviously, he just couldn't take the punches from Bacoli. And when Jared Anderson got hit, he didn't seem like he knew what to do. I don't know what you made of it, Eddie. Obviously, there's a few fights to get through. We don't want to be here all day, but nice and brief. My summary is once he got hit, he kept getting hit, and you just knew it was never going the distance. And yeah, what a way to lose Giroux. It doesn't look good.
He just didn't have, and this is what I said, I'm not going to go crazy with it, but the problem with a lot of these guys and a lot of these guys that we're high on is we see them against lower level competition, and the defensive responsibility is not as important in a situation like that. And I think for a guy like Jared Anderson, as talented as he is, there's a few flaws. I see he slaps sometimes with his punches. Even one of his knockouts was like, honestly, it was almost like a slap. But I guess he just caught him good regardless. Then like he pulls out with his head up. He's fighting like he's the 6'6" one with the 85-inch reach. You know what I mean? In a situation like where he needs to be fighting like the smaller guy. He has the ability. He has the skill. He has the ability to switch. He can do these different things. He needs to focus on, like he was doing early, focus on hitting that body, focus on those stabs to the stomach, left and right hand, both stances, fine. But then when you do those things and you pull out with your hands down, or you're looking over your shots after you throw them, a guy as big and as strong as Bakole is going to take advantage of it. And his hand, you know what's crazy is that Bakole's hand speed wasn't bad. I don't think he's super fast or anything, but his hand speed wasn't that bad in there. Like, you couldn't just sit in front of him and think that he wasn't going to be able to pop you with a jab or whatever. So he has the savvy of a boxer, even though, you know, he's super big and he's slow and cumbersome on his feet. But, you know, with the hands, it didn't matter. And I can see the George Foreman comparison, too, which actually made sense with, you know, the way he punches and how he lets his hands go with his shots. But it was, in my opinion, if Jared Anderson was more defensively responsible, stuck to whatever game plan they had, especially early with the stabs to the body, I'm not saying that he would have got out of there, you know, winning necessarily. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe he still would have eventually got caught. But if he would have just been more defensively responsible, he would have had a much better chance at surviving that fight. And I think a lot of these young guys really need to pay a little more attention to what they're doing after they punch than not just during their punching. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. It was a rude awakening for Jared Anderson, who, you know, I think I heard him say before he wanted to retire soon. He was going to walk away as a multimillionaire. And I think this was quite humbling for him, even though he did take the loss quite well in the post-fight interview. I felt he came across pretty good. But yeah, you're right. You know, I was watching Bakole and I was just thinking to myself, I'd love to see him in with Big Bang Zhang. Wouldn't that be interesting? But yeah, again, a good win for Martin Bakole. Absolutely, that's the perfect kind of win to springboard yourself right to the top of those types of conversations. Also on the card, Andy Ruiz, now 35-2. He gets his first draw of his career because he's got a draw now. Majority draw over 12 against big baby Jarrell Miller. Jarrell Miller, friend of the show, now 26-1 with 2 draws. You said on last week's show, Eddie, this is a fight that will not go the distance. I said I can see it going the distance, but I also said I think as the rounds go on, you said that Andy Ruiz might come close to a stoppage and could possibly get him out of there, and I said that I could see Big Baby perhaps stopping him in the late rounds. And I tell you what, that almost happened. It looked to me like Andy Ruiz was running on empty from about round 4. And I was sitting there watching it saying, just please get to round 7 to 8 or round 9 to 10. Because initially it was announced as a 10-rounder, I believe. So I didn't back rounds 11 and 12, but I was watching it in the 4th and 5th, and I was thinking, please just let him survive to the 7th so I can get this money. It was good odds. It was like 28-1 and 33-1, and it was really starting to turn because Andy Ruiz started fast, definitely racked up a few of the early rounds, but then you could see he was absolutely running on empty, like I said, and Jarrell Miller was putting that pressure on, constantly walking forward, sometimes not doing enough, but when he did throw, you could see he started to hurt Andy Ruiz, particularly to the body. I was quite impressed with Miller. He came in, obviously, not his career lightest, but the lightest he'd been since 2018, and I think they said Ruiz was the heaviest he'd been since his second pro fight or something like that. So that's a bad look for Ruiz, who once again will be, accused of not taking the game seriously. But yeah, I really felt that Big Baby definitely did enough. I was really, really upset for him, because I think he definitely did enough there to beat the former unified champion. What else can I say? Yeah, I was impressed with Miller. I felt he actually mixed it up from head to body. I felt like his boxing skills developed a little bit there the other night. But what did you make of it, Eddie?
Well, I mean, didn't go quite as I thought it would go. However, and I think Andy Ruiz had broke his hand at some point in the fight, which, I mean, yeah, you could kind of give him a little bit of a pass with that. I think there would have been a little more TNT coming from him later in the fight if he didn't have that issue. But in reality, I still think his offense was still, capable. He hurt Joshua with the left and the right hand. He could have still hurt him with the left hook, even if his right hand wasn't in the best of shape. I think Big Baby's game plan of just like overwhelming him with size and with, just mauling him and being big and heavy, as well as with, timely shots to the body. I think it started to work, especially in the second half of the fight. I think also him being off for a while can affect, obviously, timing and stuff like that, and maybe even conditioning to a degree, because sparring, you can't really, factor in the pressure of an actual fight, and the damage of an actual fight. It's a little different. So, I mean, the fight entertaining at times, but it got a little one-sided as the fight went on, with Big Baby just, kind of mauling him and just, walking him back to the corner, and Andy Ruiz not really being able to put up much of a fight to, change the dynamic of it. Maybe, he tried to throw some butt shots to the body. He tried to use his right hand a little bit. Every once in a while, you see him start to try to put that jab out there. But when you got a guy like that who's coming forward and pressing, using his size, you got to be the smaller guy. You got to be comfortable being the smaller guy. And I think Andy Ruiz struggles with that. And a lot of times it's hard for a guy that's used to being able to walk big, tall guys down, because of them being, sturdy and maybe a little more having that lower center of gravity and all of that, which is normally the case with Andy Ruiz. In this fight, even though Big Baby's 6'4", he's a big guy, he's 300 pounds, and he's laying on you, and he's pushing you, and he's strong, and he's determined. It just makes it hard to get a guy like that off you, even if you're heavy yourself, being 274. So I think Joe, what you said, actually played almost perfect, with the exception of him getting stopped. I just think that had Andy Ruiz been a little more active, had the right hand, I just don't think he would be able to walk through those shots so easily. And I think eventually it would have more of an effect as the fight goes on. But as we see in this fight, at this point, with how Big Baby was pressing him, if he's a little busier, if he puts his jab out there a little bit more, if he pushes him a little bit more, where he can actually still wear him down. So even if Andy Ruiz is in a little bit better shape, he's coming in with his right hand at full power, I still think it's going to be a tough fight for him regardless. Just having an opportunity to see the fight play out, it's a little more evident that 300-pound weight, and honestly, Big Baby, he has skill. He's not no just big dude that just lays on you and puts heavy arms on you and throws punches when he needs to. No, he's got skill too. It's not like he's not a decent fighter, and skill-wise himself. So it's just the culmination of all of those things together makes it a really difficult challenge. And if Andy Ruiz is going to beat a guy like this, he's going to have to be comfortable, like I said, being a smaller guy, maybe using his legs a little more, using the range a little bit, making Big Baby reach a little more. You know what I mean? that right there will give him a bit of more of an edge in the matchup. But if he continues just to walk back or let him walk him back to the ropes, it's going to be a long night.
And now moving up the card, David Morrell. I think you said you missed this one, which I wish I had as well. He's now 11-0. A unanimous decision victory for him for the vacant WBA World Light Heavyweight title. His opponent, Radivoj Kaladzic, now 29-3. Like I say, unanimous decision over 12. You could get £1 back for every £9 that you bet on Morrell to win by a KO. So no one in the whole world expected this to go the distance. Obviously, Kaladzic had only been stopped once in his 2 losses. It was to Artur Beterbiev, and David Morrell really seemed to just run out of ideas after like 1 round. There were I think moments in the final round where he started to really put things together, but the footwork of Kaladzic was giving Morrell so many issues, man. And Kaladzic was actually winning a few rounds in there. I don't think he probably got given the credit for them. But, you know, I was watching it with someone and I was saying, look, this guy who's about to come on now, he's a killer. He's a killer. He wants Benavidez. He wants Beterbiev. Honestly, this guy is he's a fantastic fighter. Moving up to light heavyweight, you know, there's so many fights for him up there, and you know, don't blink. And I couldn't believe it, you know, in round 12, like it just wasn't coming. And Kaladzic, credit to him, man, he knew how to survive. But also, his jab was really nice. And when I say he knew how to survive, that's probably a bit too disrespectful, because I tell you what, he knew to win rounds. He knew how to win rounds, and he knew how to win rounds, you know, in a row. He was really, really impressive, actually, and he made David Morrell look bang average. Moving up the card once again, Isaac Pitbull Cruz now 26-3 with a draw, a split decision win for Jose Valenzuela and the new WBA World Super Lightweight Champion. He's now 14-2. Obviously, we knew him mainly for his fights against Chris Colbert. I tell you what, I have to say, Eddie, and you don't always hear this, but I could see boxing fans on social media describing Valenzuela's performance as beautiful. He boxed rings around Isaac Cruz, and his jab was fantastic. He didn't get too excited. I thought he was brilliant. I really did think he was brilliant. You know, he was so disciplined for the entire 12 rounds. A couple moments, I think he sort of lost concentration a little bit and got caught with a shot here and there, but for the most part he was in full control, and I didn't want him to take it away from him, because obviously Pitbull Cruz, they're talking about that rematch with Tank Davis, who no one wants to see, and it was talked about so heavily, and I thought, please don't rob Valenzuela, and I'm so thankful that they didn't. It shouldn't have been a split decision. It really shouldn't have been. But then again, you know, I saw a lot of people giving rounds to Isaac Cruz just because he was the one coming forward all the time, being the aggressor, but not actually being effective with it. So yeah, you know, he gave a lesson there, Valenzuela. He gave out, you know, a boxing lesson on what to do with a much smaller pressure fighter. And he boxed off the back foot beautifully. And like I say, Eddie, we don't always put beautiful and boxing in the same sentence. We don't do it as much as we wish we did, because we do love seeing beautiful boxing, but it's a rare thing, and we don't always see it. This was that, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I get a kid a lot of credit. I like Isaac Cruz. I wanted to, you know, see him do well. You know, I mean, I wanted to see the fights in the future. I think he's a dynamite young guy, you know what I mean? He's not necessarily the most attractive skill-wise fighter, but he has that menacing, and it's kind of unassuming because he's so small, but he's like a ball of it's almost like they're not the same, they're different. There's a little, but it's like Nick Ball. You know Nick Ball? It's like him. It's like just like a tornado of shit coming out. These motherfuckers they're really explosive. But damn, yeah, Valenzuela, man, what a performance. Great jab, the counter uppercut, both hands. Beautiful, on time. It was like he literally trained for this fight for years, not just for 8 weeks. It looked like he was well prepared. Everything he did, with the exception of, I think he pulled out a couple of times with his head up, and that could have been a really bad situation where you win in the whole fight, boxing beautifully, and then you get caught with a shot just because you being undisciplined with your head up in the air. But I felt like he was defensively responsible. There's some of the shots, Isaac Cruz, he's going to land some of them shots because the way he comes up and how explosive he is, and the speed out of the position he is, and sometimes you just don't expect it. But that's why you got to keep your hands and your head in the right place. But I think he did a great job. I think the way he boxed, not ever really getting trapped on the ropes too long, not putting himself in position to where he can really start a rally, you know what I mean? Maybe land a couple shots in a row. I think he really did what most people would envision themselves doing boxing, right? You know what I mean? Keeping the guy on the end of your shots, landing the shots at the point right at the end of the shot. You know what I mean? He even landed a nice uppercut that looked like it hurt Isaac Cruz a little bit. You know what I mean? Like he kind of dropped a little bit, but right away he came right back and threw a couple of shots. But that's why you got to be defensively responsible, because no matter what the situation is, you get a guy like that, there's no telling, whether if he's hurt. Sometimes that's the worst you can put him in is getting him hurt, and then they come out of that thing like a tornado and tear you apart. So Valenzuela did a great job. You know what I mean? I think he not only deserved the belt, but he definitely deserved the unanimous decision along with it. And the future's bright as long as he keeps this kind of performance up. Now, granted, he's not Isaac Cruz and everybody he's going to face. It's one style. So he's going to have to be prepared like this at every turn, and it's not going to get any easier as he goes forward.
And then, the main event, talking of bright futures, Israel Madrimov loses his O, but I would say in defeat certainly gained a hell of a lot. Like I say, 10-1 with a draw, a unanimous decision loss to Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford becomes yet another weight class world champion. This one was for the WBA World Super and Super Welterweight title, and the WBO Interim World Super Welterweight title. Really good fight. I mean, I say really good fight. Obviously, it wasn't full of action, but yeah, Terence Crawford, man, he had to be on his A game here, and I wasn't expecting as much from Madrimov as we got. I mean, Madrimov was really, really impressive. A lot of people saw it as a close fight. Obviously, the scorecards indicated that as well over the 12. Madrimov with the really good footwork and a really good understanding of distance, and probably more important than any of that, the constant feints. He was constantly feinting, and I can't think of a guy that stood in front of Terence Crawford within range and has feinted so often to the point where I felt at times Terence Crawford was second guessing himself, and had to really think in there. And, we expected, I think, both of us, we expected Terence Crawford to once again get a stoppage. He'd gone 8 years just getting stoppages, and he goes the distance here. And again, a lot of people didn't expect that. The odds were close with the bookies and stuff. I thought, they weren't actually that close now, I remember it, but they did expect Terence Crawford to get the stoppage, and it just obviously didn't look likely at any point. I think Terence Crawford won the 12th round quite clearly, but other than that, the other 11 rounds were not, I think Crawford won. I wasn't scoring it round by round, but they were not like landslide rounds at all. Every single round was competitive, and Madrimov just wasn't fazed, wasn't overawed at all by the whole event, and being in the opposite corner to the pound for pound number one fighter in the world, or certainly pound for pound number 2 or 3, and hats off to Madrimov, man. He certainly surpassed my expectations of him, and gave the pound for pound king, in my opinion, a really, really hard fight. So good fight. But Terence Crawford, he's not taking easy fights to try and get to that 50-0 Mayweather record. He's still challenging himself. I mean, you just look at his last two, and obviously it's Madrimov and Errol Spence. I mean, this guy could have done a little bit of a Munguia, took a few easier fights, and obviously Munguia decided to cash in against Canelo, and he didn't really care about getting to 50-0 anymore because he wanted that paycheck. Terence Crawford wants Canelo. It just seems like we're probably not going to get it, but he does not care who he fights. He doesn't duck anyone. And it was another good win, another weight class, like I say. And the world is his oyster. But again, nice and brief, Eddie. Madrimov, for me, very, very impressive. And I think his stocks go through the roof in defeat there.
Honestly, man, I sometimes, and I'm not going to be too long with this, but sometimes I forget. You forget how boxing really is, and these guys work their whole lives to get to this moment. And it's just like we look at him and say, "Oh yeah, he should be able to do this. He should be able to do that." And it's like Madrimov has been working his whole life to be at this particular point. You think he's also? I think he was also a great amateur too, or a high level amateur. So you think he hasn't seen this kind of thing before? And this is where I get caught up. And you start listening to the people talk. You start listening to the pundits. You start listening to all these people. And it's like, yo, why do I allow myself to fall into this thing by listening to these some of these pundits, some of these people that talk about boxing? And, they're qualified in their own right. But I know I'm qualified. I've been in there. I understand boxing to a very high degree. Why do I not think about what people thought of me before I actually broke into the big time? You understand what I'm saying? Like it's not important necessarily what people think versus what's actually going on in these guys in the gym with these guys. And Madrimov just looks like a person that he's not bothered. He's like, man, I ain't worried about that. I'm just gonna go in there and fight the best way I know how. And that's what he did. All the feints, all of the things we saw should not really have been a surprise with a guy who has that much experience, amateur experience from what I understand. If I don't even know, I might be wrong, but and just skill in general. You know what I mean? He's not an average guy. He's world champion. Actually, Terrence was going up to his weight to fight him for the title as the challenger. So I just think it was a little lack of respect for him, and it's understandable because Terrence Crawford is great, but we see that there's not only Terrence Crawford in the ring, and this guy didn't give one shit about Terrence Crawford being in the ring with him. It could have been anybody. It could have been King Kong. He still would have gave him everything he could have taken. You understand what I'm saying? So hats off to him. I think Terrence did as good a job as he possibly could have with this guy. I mean, don't get me wrong. Obviously, he could have probably done a couple things better. You know what I mean? A little more, like I said, and I've been saying this a lot, a little more defensively responsible. But to be quite honest, you can't be so prepared for a guy that feints and moves that much and stutter steps that much. That's really difficult to deal with. So the fact that Terrence Crawford is able to win that fight and truly win that fight, he deserves a lot of credit. And he obviously should be either pound for pound king or at least one of them in the top three. So, yeah, great fight. I like seeing fights like that. So, for me, that was like, a very eye-catching, eye-candy type fight for me because there's a lot of skills, a lot of feints, a lot of movements, a lot of things that hardcore boxing people want to see. So, yeah, I liked it. And hats off to both fighters. They put on a hell of a performance.
Well, there we go. That brings the review part to a close. It's now time to welcome this week's special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the undefeated welterweight prospect. It is, of course, Mr. Sean Noakes. Sean, welcome on the show, my friend.
Thank you for having me, mate.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So, Sean, it's the first time you've been on, so welcome once again. You've been a pro now just over 2 years. Obviously, you're 8-0. Everything's going well by the looks of it, my friend.
Yeah, so far so good, mate. Chipping away slowly and still got my brain cells intact, so can't complain.
Got married in that time as well, so it's all.
I got married just over a year ago. I think I was a pro a year, got married, and then we're a year in. She's not killed me just yet, so far so good.
Now, I've been ringside for a few of your fights, but yeah, let's talk about the most recent one last weekend. You boxed Inder Bassi at the O2 Arena, a unanimous decision over 10 for yourself. Just talk me through that fight, my friend.
Yeah, it was a good fight. I knew it was. I thought I'd struggle to get past his jab a little bit more than I did. I was landing my own jabs quite comfortably. So, but then when I got too close, I kind of overcooked it. So I'd taken his head off a little bit. And he was holding on a lot, so it was just hard to get the work in. So I wanted to stoppage, but I'm happy with the points for him.
I was going to say, are you one to watch your own fights back straight away or not? But it sounds like you did.
Yeah, no, I think I have to do. As soon as we normally do the same thing, me and my brother. So after the fight, if I say I'm fighting, he'll drive, or he's fighting, I'll drive, and we'll go back. Afterwards, we'll order pizza and watch the fight back together.
Oh, that's wicked, man. That's cool.
Yeah, we always do. We always go to my mum's house and watch a fight back.
Wow, that's a wicked tradition. Is there any pineapple on them pizzas or not?
Mate, to be fair, I don't mind a bit of pineapple on my pizza. I'm quite a sucker for pineapple on a bit of pizza, but I don't think he is.
Okay.
Normally just a barbecue meat feast, keep everyone happy.
There we go. That's controversial from you, Sean. Yeah, I have to say, I was very surprised in the arena to hear the noise of the Bassi fans. I mean, they were so loud. They dominated the noise in the crowd. I was shocked. Was that surprising for you?
No. To be fair, we knew he does a good ticket. I think he done like. I've done like nearly 300. He done like 400, nearly 500, mate. So it was quite loud.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Good reception there.
And prior to the other week, obviously you'd only done 6. How did you find going the 10?
Mate, I didn't find it that bad. So in past fights, I felt more tired. You know what I mean? Like I felt more tired in one of my 4 rounders than I did in that 10. I think where the title fight, it means more to you. You put the extra work in, and it's all you're thinking about when you're running. All in your head, all you're thinking about is the fight. So it gets you up for it more. And yeah, I was ready. I feel like I kept a good pace all 10 rounds. Yeah, I'm quite happy with it all.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I have to say, I was sat there in the second row. I personally didn't think the fight was that close. I felt the scorecards were a bit too close for me. I wonder what you thought about that, Sean.
Because you see my head when I had like 97, 93 or whatever, at 97, 94, where it was. I was like, can you argue that one? I had 96, 94. I shook my head. I was like, what? Like, cause I even the shots he was landing, I was catching most of them on the gloves. I think his scorecards were a bit off. After watching it back, I think generously I gave him 2 rounds.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like you say, he had a nice sharp jab when he used it, but he did neglect it as the fight went on and went into a bit of a shell late on. His hair was all over the place.
He's not the best looking fella, is he?
Your words, not mine. Moving forward, is anyone on your radar, Sean?
Not really. Like I said, I don't really look too far into it all. You know what I mean? Like, so the name that was put to me was Ekow Essuman. Eventually, I said, look, he's an experienced fighter. I need to get that kind of experience myself. So like 2 or 3 more 10 rounders, I'll be ready for a fight like that.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, because there's a lot of guys obviously floating around domestically at 147. It's always been a hot division. Ekow Essuman's one for the future, I think. When do you want to be out next, ideally, and what kind of level are you looking at? Probably the same sort of level as the other week?
Mate, I'd have to talk to the team about it. I have to see what Mick and Francis want to do. I don't mind. These fighters are easy going, aren't they? It's the other politics that the other people have to deal with. But I think my manager said October, November time I'm out again, so I can enjoy this holiday and straight back to it.
Wicked, my friend. And I must ask as well about your brother. Obviously, we've had Sam on a bunch of times. When are we likely to hear when he'll next be out, my friend?
You'll hear this week it'll be announced. I believe it's September he's out.
Okay, we'll look forward to that. We'll keep our eyes and ears open. Just before
it's all kind of happening at the same time for me. The weekend I'm moving to my new house. Is the week of his fight, and I normally have to do the press, media, and shit with him as well. So I'll be back and forth, flat out all day.
Oh man, I'm sending you strength. Just before we wrap things up, Sean, if you just want to sign out with a little closing message to the listeners, you can thank sponsors, you can drop your social media handles. Sign out with any message before we let you go. The floor is yours.
Just follow me on Instagram, at Sean Noakes. Don't really use many other aspects of social media. And thank you to all my sponsors always, mate. They make it possible for me to do what I love. and to keep performing at this level.
There we go. Well said, my friend Sean. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for your time. Congrats again on your win, and we'll speak again soon, mate. I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. Cheers. Nice to hear from you, mate. All the best.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part is the news part. Again, there's quite a bit of news this week. We have Jack Catterall versus Regis Prograis. That's been moved to October the 26th at the Co-op Live in Manchester. Like I say, it's been postponed there due to an injury suffered by, I think it was by Catterall, if I'm not mistaken. So, like I say, looking forward to that rescheduled date. We're also going to see Sandy Ryan stepping in with Michaela Mayer. That one to go down at welterweight there. It'll be for Sandy Ryan's title. It's going to be on September the 27th at the theatre at the Madison Square Garden. So I think that's a really, really, really good fight there for the WBO welterweight world title. Fantastic fight. I really actually like that fight a lot. What else do we have? Caleb Plant will be on the undercard of Canelo Berlanga. Caleb steps in with unbeaten Trevor McCumbee for the interim WBA super middleweight world title, and also former 140-pound world champion Rolando Romero takes on Manuel Jaimez, I think his name is said. Again, the date for that is September the 14th, and yeah, it is what it is. The main event I don't think is too great. I think that's it for the news. There might be one other piece. No, I don't think there is. Okay, that brings the news part to a close. It's now time to move to the preview part of the show. We're going to start here with this one. There's only 2 cards to mention, so let's try and go through it nice and quickly. Tell you what, I'm going to start with the other card. Actually, I was going to do this one last, but I'm going to do this one first. This one goes down on Saturday. It's going to be live on ESPN, and it's going to be live on Sky Sports. It's a top-ranked show. We're going to see on this card, on the undercard, Vito Mielnicki. I didn't say where it was. It's at the Tingley Coliseum in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Vito Mielnicki Jr. 18-1 in a 10-rounder against Laszlo Toth, who's 32-8 with 2 draws. Lindolfo Delgado 20-0, stepping in with Brian Flores 26-0 with a draw. And the main event is going to be quite a good fight, I think, because I do enjoy watching him. Luis Alberto Lopez 30-2, defending his IBF featherweight world title against friend of the show Angelo Leo, former world champion, 24-1. All the best there to Leo in the away corner. I don't think he's been super active lately, but he has had a couple of comeback fights recently, and but yeah, it's a tough fight against Luis Alberto Lopez, who at this minute is on such a run. He seems like he's really improving. That's it for that one. Moving to the final card to mention, it goes down at the Mandalay Bay Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, Nevada, USA. Again, this is Saturday night. This one is going to be on DAZN, and it is an Oscar De La Hoya Golden Boy show. Let's start with the undercard. I think there's some really good fights on this card, to be totally honest with you. Let's start with Charles Conwell back in action. He's 19-0. He steps in with Chiari Gray, who's 18-6. That one over 10 rounds at Super Welter. We're going to see return to the ring for friend of the show Kenny Sims Jr., 20-2 with a draw. He's back in action. He steps in with Jair Valtierra, who is 17-3. That one is over 10 rounds there. At super lightweight. All the best to Kenny Sims, really nice guy, good fighter. Also on the card as well, Cecilia Brackhouse fighting for the WBC interim world super welterweight title. The former pound for pound queen is already 40 fights deep, 37-2 with a draw is the record. She is coming off that draw with Terry Harper. I remember watching that, and I'm pretty sure Harper was a clear winner, I think. I can't remember it in great detail, but anyway, she steps in with Maricela Cornejo, who's 19-6. Cornejo we kind of last saw in a big fight, losing on points to Clarissa Shields. But she always comes and gives it a good go. I think she was a late replacement in that fight, if my memory serves me right. So could be interesting. I mean, there's a chance of an upset in that one. I'd even go as far to say you just never know. I don't think Brackhouse has got too much left at this point. Moving up the card, we've got Gabriela Fundora defending her IBF flyweight world title over 10-2. She's 13-0. She steps in with Daniela Asenjo, who is 16-3 with 3 draws, never been stopped. Again, it's always great to see Gabriela Fundora fight. Really brings another dynamic really to women's boxing, because she is a lot like her brother Sebastian Fundora, the Towering Inferno. She's tall, she's thin, and she can punch exactly like him. And then the main event, I tell you what, I'd go as far to say you can put your house on this fight not going the distance, Eddie. I just cannot see it. And I tell you what, I'm so confident. I'm going to place a big bet, I think, on this to not go the distance. Virgil Ortiz, 21-0 with 20 KOs for the WBC Interim World Super Welterweight title over 12 rounds. He steps in with Sergei Bohachuk, 24-1 with 23 KOs. He was KO'd in his one loss, of course, Bohachuk, back to Brandon Adams back in 2021. It seems like he's improved a hell of a lot since then. He's coming off that win last time out against Brian Mendoza as well, by the way. He went 12 rounds with the very tough Brian Mendoza. And like I say, he gets in with Virgil Ortiz, who's coming off 2 first-round knockouts in a row. So hasn't really done any serious amount of rounds since August 2022, so 2 years ago, to Michael McKinson. Like I say, no way is this going the distance. I think we're going to probably agree here, Eddie, on that one. And also, the boxing skills are with Virgil Ortiz, but the raw power is probably with Bohachuk, to be totally honest with you. I think he probably has heavier hands, but it's about putting those punches together. I think Virgil Ortiz is better at that, but I think there will be openings, and honestly, this fight could be over within the first 6 rounds, but there's no way it's going 12 in my opinion. But it's a great fight, and I do love seeing 2 true knockout artists going at it, especially when there's a version of a world title on the line. It's an interim belt, but hey ho, who cares? This is going to be a mad fight while it lasts, Eddie. Do not blink.
Yeah, 100%. If you're gonna put that bet on, Joe, I might want to throw a couple dollars in there too with it, because I don't think it's going to distance either. And if you got 2 big bangers in there, obviously we got to go with the one who has the skill and the ability to put punches together properly, and that's Virgil Ortiz. So sounds like a great card, definitely a great fight. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I really think it's going to be a mad fight, man. I cannot wait for that one. Like, it's just going to be crazy. The fight not to go the distance is only 1-2, so it's not great odds, but it's like you could put $100 on it, get back, 50 on top of your 100. I still think at odds of that, I want to, makes me want to go and empty my whole bank account on it. I just cannot see that at all going 12 rounds. I just do not see it. Really good fight. I think Sergei Bohachuk is 9-2 for the KO. I think that's overpriced, and Virgil Ortiz is almost even money for the KO himself. I mean, that is just absolutely insane. Yeah, great fight. And like I say, I want to say it again, do not blink. They're expecting this to go some rounds by the looks of things. I think the over-under's set at 8.5 rounds. I just don't know if we're going to see that many. Could be over, honestly, within the first couple. Anyway, once again, don't blink. That brings the preview part, though, to a close. In part 1, we did the review part. Then we welcomed our special guest, the undefeated welterweight prospect himself, Mr. Sean Noakes. In part 2, we did the news part of the show. There was a few bits there. We've just wrapped up the preview part. The final thing for me to do is to come in with the outro, which I'll do, Eddie, in
just a few seconds.
There we go. Okay, and this wraps up episode 460 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Essuman. Eddie Chambers has been with me for the duration of the show. A massive shout out to this week's special guest, that man being the undefeated welterweight prospect. Keep an eye out for him, Sean Noakes, of course. The biggest thanks, though, of all goes out to you, the listeners. Thanks once again for tuning in. That is about everything, though, from myself. Enjoy your weekends, people. Stay safe, and we'll see you all again, same time next week.